Hello. Welcome back to another day of Axie Origins, meta-analysis and team highlight. So today, this is how the top leaderboard looks like, and as you can see, we do have a new leader, and interestingly, Sushi One actually dropped back down from Challenger, so that just means everybody got the level up a bit. And interestingly, okay, Sushi One probably just got the Raven's tactic, so they switched the aqua. It used to be an aqua beast with a bird just because of the rune. So this is what I would say is that yeah, depending on, well, especially for the first 7 days, depending on what runes and charms you get, you might have to switch up your this lineup just because you do get, like, let's say you get a bird rune that's very strong. You might want to consider using a bird, and I feel that the runes and charms has a very big, well, plays a very big role in the power level of the whole team in general. But okay, let me just scroll down. Okay, so actually GeoYani23 actually climbed up quite a bit, which I must say I contributed. I literally had a highlight of GeoYani23's team yesterday, so if you want to look at their team, do check out my yesterday's video on YouTube. But yeah, so I contribute because I actually faced GeoYani23 early on today, and lost, well, very narrowly, but I will say I very narrowly lost to them. But very interesting that such a sustained build can climb up so high despite seeing all these aggro teams. Okay, so let me just see what else is going on in the meta, because you can see that it's pretty similar, and the main thing I would say is people are just getting better runes, especially the one on top. So yeah, I think at this point it's more about who grinds the most so that they actually get the better runes, who will usually be at the top. So at this point, yeah, I would say a lot more aggros do have the sustain, and a lot of sustain do have the arcane protection dawn, yeah, which is basically the meta for sustain, I would say. Yeah, pretty much all sustain build has this plant dawn kind of setup, while the aggro team, well, this one is also pretty strong. An aggro team has this kind of setup with a pendulum scale, and then some strong either bird or aqua more common, depending on what kind of good runes you get. Of course, you can have a beast as well if you have say Rex Hunter or better runes. So this is pretty much how the meta is at the moment. Okay, so let's dive right into today's team highlight, which is TTV stack Axie quest. So let's jump right in there and see what their team is about. And it is a beast, which is the tank, with pendulum scale, and then a bloodlust aqua, very strong, and then a raven's tactic bird. So let me see what they have in each Axie. So let's focus on the front first. And interestingly, they do have a beast with some aqua card. So I would say the main thing I would point out is that they do have days and a card draw. So card draw, as I said before, very important, especially coupled with Cottontail, or I'll call those gain 1 energy cards, so basically Cottontail and Nemo, just because sometimes you run out of cards to play if you have a lot of these gain 1 energy card, and being able to draw into other cards that you can then use up all your energy could be very important. Also Golda quite standard. I think Dual Blade pretty useful against sustain. And Daze is an interesting one that you should take note of. So okay, what Daze does is that it shuffled a Daze, which is just a card that the opponent cannot play, so it literally is just fill up the deck effectively, and you can't, or they can't really do anything with it. They just have to draw it at some point throughout the cycle. And I think Nyan is just there. I'm not too sure if they have any synergy with it at the moment, but let's see. Okay, and then there's the Aqua, and the Aqua pretty standard as well with the Nemo. Weak could be quite important against opposing aggro teams, and Risk of Fish very standard. You can see card draws very important. So all the top teams will have card draws and gaining energy kind of card. And I would say the thing to note about this whole team, one of the themes, right, additional theme I would say is shuffling Daze or Jinx, shuffling basically cards that opponents cannot play, and we call this curse card. And just putting curse card into opponents' deck can be very useful, especially in the second or even the third cycle, where there will be turns where opponents just can't, use their full 3 energy just because they draw into so many Daze and Jinx cards. Okay, and let's see the last one. Well, again, very interesting with a bird that has quite a number of aqua cards. So there's pure aggro, and of course because it's a Raven's Tactic, and I actually should show, okay, it doesn't really say what it does, but Raven's Tactic is a rune where if the Axie is above half health, then it deals 20% more damage to opponent, whereas if it's below half health, then it takes 20% less damage. So it can be a very defensive tools late game, but also very aggressive, especially if you put it at the back and the opponent can't touch you, then effectively you have 20% extra damage, sorry. So that's why there's a very aggro team. Again, you can see the theme here. Getting a Daze and a Jinx is getting a lot of curse card into opponent's deck, and also a Pigeon Pose. That's very important as well, and that's because it puts the blackmail to the opponent's hand, right? It literally puts it in their hand. But the key is that what the blackmail does is that the card will actually be put at the top of the draw pile of the opponent, meaning they will definitely draw the blackmail. And each turn, every player draw 5 cards, right? So effectively, you deny the opponent's 1 draw because the first draw has to be a blackmail. So effectively, the opponent only draw 4 useful cards and the blackmail. But of course, it comes with some, could be downside, but basically, it is a card that the opponent can use it to apply taunt to the furthest Axie. So meaning they can divert the attacks to their furthest Axie. So it makes it very interesting. Sometimes you do want to keep it in your hand and don't play it if you want your back Axie to survive, but then it clogs up your draws. So it's pretty interesting. And another way of using it is, of course, if you have some summons, which this team doesn't, but if you have some summons like a Clover or Mavis, then you can put that at the back and then put the blackmail in, and then interestingly, I don't think it actually taunts your furthest Axie, and maybe it is now I think about it, it might be a wrong wording, or it's just not intended. It's either a bug or a wording that's not correct. It's because it actually taunts the summon as well as the Axie. So I'm not too sure. I actually never read the text in as much detail. But from what I know is that it actually force the opponent to target the summons if it's at the back. Okay, so this is pretty much the team. This is very aggro. Okay, actually, another thing that I forgot to mention is this taunt. So Eggshell, very strong card with very high attack damage, but also the taunt, meaning opponent has to hit into this Axie for 2 turns, meaning for the next turn effectively. And this is very important is because this basically allows you to save your front Axie. Let's say your front Axie is pretty low and you still want like maybe you see that the draw is that most of the cards are very useful from the front Axie, but it's very low and you don't want your opponent to KO it next turn, then you can do the Eggshell to taunt your opponent. And in a way it evens out the damage as opposed to one Axie taking all the damage. It evens it out. Yeah, so it can be a very strong tool as well. Okay, so this is the team, and let's jump right into some replays. And okay, let's just jump into this one. I have no idea what it is, but in terms of the matchup, but let's just see. Okay, let me pause the video here and look at each Axie. So here on the left is Star Axie's team, and you can see the runes and charms. In this case, actually you don't see that like that. The charms are actually pretty normal, it looks like, but it's really the runes that make the difference. But of course also the moves. Okay, so pretty standard across the board. There's a lot of strong charms, but that is pretty much it. Yeah, so nothing special yet, I would say. But okay, let's look at the opponent as well. Axie Kiss can be pretty strong. Interesting to have the rise, especially at the front. Okay, and then let's see. Okay, a lot of AoEs here. Okay, interesting to see a bug, which they are at Tiger 1, which is pretty high, I would say. Tiger 1 should be the top 100 for sure. But running a bug is pretty uncommon, and that's why I actually wanted to see it. Okay, this is an interesting, a lot of AoEs kind of build. I actually want to look at the bug again. So reason being, they have actually Grandma's Fan AoE, but very important, I think, to deal damage because it does vulnerable. Earwing, very important AoE as well. This does bleed. The Death Mark can be very strong. Basically, the Death Mark can actually deal sometimes 60 more damage. Heal block could be important. I think this is the tech for sustain builds. And well, this is a strong attack cards. Okay, so let's see how it goes. Okay, very strong start with the risky fish. So yeah, very, very strong. You always want to just deal as much damage as possible. Okay, that's where the death mark comes, and let's see how many damage it does. So okay, that's 15 already, and it probably will take more damage from this. So that's literally roughly about half health already. And okay, then so with the Golda, and then just the days. Okay, very standard so far, but you can see that they're already shuffling quite a lot of well, some curse card into opponent's deck. Okay, so that's the death mark deals well, okay, in this case actually not so much damage just because it's just one card used, but it's actually per energy spent, so in a way it doesn't even matter, so it's still 30 damage because it's a 2 energy card. Okay, but very strong turn here using a lot of energy, but unfortunately just didn't get to use the last one. Okay, so this is where the blackmail comes in, and the opponent has to be forced to be using drawing the blackmail. So let's see if they actually play the blackmail in this case. Interesting to opt to not play the risky fish first. And do they play the blackmail? They do. Okay. At this point, I would say it's still okay. I was gonna say even, but actually I think Stark Axie board has the advantage in terms of the damage already, and a lot of Jinx card going into the opponent's deck, and you might actually see that in action pretty soon, because now the opponent is going to draw into their discard pile, and you already see that the Void doing its job. Luckily though, the opponent does have a free energy card that they can then actually use to KO the front. Actually pretty close game. So at this level, I think the power level of the teams are pretty high, and when I say high, I mean still quite even, but yes, the weak coming clutch, I would say. At this point, putting Jinx in doesn't even matter. It's really just about dealing damage, I think. Yeah, basically using a Bloodlust, not just to deal extra damage, but also heal up. So that's why Bloodlust is very strong. But now, unfortunately, you can see the days coming into play. But yeah, and also be forced to use some inefficient energy usage, just because that dealt 50 damage per energy, which is not ideal. and it feels like it's a GG. So I actually didn't really get to see the curse card in that much action, but yep, there's a lot of damage across the board in terms of the runes that allows them to get the victory. Okay, so let's look at another game. Let's try to look at one that has a different results, and then see how I want to feature one that you can actually see how to beat this kind of team as well. Of course, a lot to do with luck, but also yeah, like you at least know like how to what's a possible way of playing against this kind of team. So let's see. Okay, let me pause the video here and see the Axie again. I think these are pretty much the same ones. And let's see what the opponent is. Okay, the opponent is playing a Shiba Rage kind of a confident team with vulnerable, so everything very strong. And then let me see here. Oh, they do have the bubble as well, so if they play this twice, then they do get the bubble value, so also pretty strong. Oh, note that there is the Nemo. And interesting that you note that they put the Shiba up front, and that's because after the first 2 turns, this actually usually will be quite low or low enough that it will activate the Shiba. So if they manage to play a Shiba once and activate its ability, and this ability is that the whole team gains 4 rage if the Axie is below 75 health, right? So you actually want to take a bit of damage, then play the Shiba. Okay, in terms of the last one, this is the one where they definitely would want to gain more rage. Alright, so that's why I have this team that gains potentially 3 of rage. And yep, again, gaining more rage stacks so that they can get into free mode and deal a lot of damage with this Reckless Hunter card. And Ronin deals usually 100 something damage easily. So let's see how this plays out. Okay, starting off with Golda. Yeah, I don't know why the animation does this every time I play Golda, and then yep, just use the confidence to gain the stack of rage. Okay, it's a pretty good start, I would say. Risk efficient and probably post fight just to deal as much damage as possible. I assume this is when Shiba comes in. If they are very lucky, yes, so they got very lucky to get Shiba in this particular turn, then activates the, well, because they are under 75% health, and it activates the ability or the effects. So unfortunately, for start Axie, they just couldn't get rid of the front early enough, and the opponent managed to get the stacks. The opponent is in Dragon as well, so very strong. A card draw, and is the front going down? No. Okay, the front actually surviving, which is pretty big for Stark Axie at this point. And they do get to do this so-called 4 energy turn, but let's see if they manage to do more. I think they don't have any card draw. So yep, so it's just a 4 energy, I think. But still not bad, you know. But it's just unfortunate to draw into the Nemo, so they actually don't get to play the free energy next turn. Well, they could be able to if they draw it right away, but okay, this is a key turn, perhaps, is it? Okay, it got into 8 stacks already, using the free energy to do an Axie Kiss and finish off the back. And they can, okay, they're actually gonna save the free energy for later, and still pretty close at this point. They should be able to get through the front, but unfortunately the card are just not very strong, and they can't actually get through the front very effectively, and so it just really has to sink in 3 cards. And I think now Stack Axie is a bit behind. Let's see how the draw comes. But okay, the draw actually comes in such a way that it's really not kind for the opponent with the Void, but actually do manage to shield up, so that just means they should be able to survive 1 turn. Okay, now it's the Star Axie's turn to actually get the vulnerable, but I'm pretty sure now the opponent should go down in one turn. So the question is whether the opponent can finish off Star Axie's aqua at, well, from full health basically. And here is where the rage comes in, gains. Actually the rage doesn't come, and it only comes now. But the Ronin is enough to pick up the KO because with the extra energy. So very strong. So this is why the Rage and Fury is very, very strong effect that dominated the previous season. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed my video, do consider giving me a like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitch, and use my Lenosian code Morris. Thanks again and have a good one.